quick show of hands, how many of you, either yourself or a loved one, are on some sort of public benefit based on a disability? So DDD, Social Security, SSI, Medicaid, Medicare. Great. Okay. So why do these public benefits matter? These are life-changing resources. So whatever we are on now, we want to make sure that we preserve them. Whatever we might be eligible for in the future, we want to be informed about these resources and make sure that those are possible. The more public benefits that are being received, the less that is being paid for out of pocket. So that's always an important financial consideration as well. And lastly, this system of disability services is extremely complex. I don't have to tell you that. So we want to make sure that we know exactly what is being received and how we are going to protect those benefits. All right, so the biggest pitfalls that we see in our office are, first and foremost, not applying in the first place. I know that it's time consuming and it's tedious and it's difficult to apply for state benefits, but it so often is worthwhile. So make sure to at least give it a shot. Second pitfall that we often see is called ISM. So this is one for individuals who are receiving SSI. It's called In-Kind Support and Maintenance, ISM. And basically the concept is that if a family member or a trust is paying for food or housing, shelter, the individual's SSI, which is already a small amount, could be reduced by up to 1/3. So it's already a small amount. Let's try to maximize it as much as possible. There is a proposed regulation to remove food from the definition of ISM, but stay tuned for that. It's from the federal government, so they're going to take their time. One of the biggest tools we use here, and Tom spoke about it a little bit earlier, is the lease agreement. So I know it seems a little bit silly. Of course, your child is going to live with you, right? I mean, he or she, that's your baby. Of course, they're going to live with you free of charge. It seems preposterous to charge your child rent, but that's not how the government sees it. So come to us, we prepare a lease agreement, we pay fair market value, and that can help raise the SSI if it is not at its maximum already. And we're going to talk about what the maximum is. So that's an important tool to be using. I have a lot of clients who are like, well, what do I now do? This money is being now taken from my child's SSI and given to me as the parent. What am I supposed to do with that? We usually advise, put it in a separate account that is in your name, the parent's name, so that it's not countable to the child, and use that to pay for the expenses throughout the month that you are already going to pay for anyway as their parent. So the things that SSI is not necessarily going to cover, keep that in a bank account. And then in theory, that is a part of your estate as the parent. And if you establish a third-party special needs trust, that money that is left over from rent will go into your estate if you are past one day, and that goes to your child that way anyway. So that's kind of the workaround that we use to make sure that SSI stays at its maximum, is that lease agreement. Under the umbrella of means-based public benefits, there are income-based benefits and there are asset-based benefits. So these are some of the benefits that I'm going to be discussing today. Some of them are asset-based, some of them are income-based, some of them are both. I have a lot of clients who call me up and they say, I have no idea what I'm on. I have no idea what my loved one is on. Social Security, which is that's an umbrella term in and of itself. So that's fine, but we do need to figure out exactly what they're receiving so that we know how to protect it. That's important to know exactly what they are on so that we know the tests that the government is using to maintain their eligibility and that we can prepare for that. So let's break down some of these programs that we've got here. Let's start with SSDI and Medicare. All right, so SSDI, Social Security Disability Income. To be eligible, the Social Security Administration must determine that the individual is disabled and not able to engage in any substantial gainful activity. So that's the legal term of art there, substantial gainful activity. There's no income or asset limit for SSDI, so a special needs trust is not needed because it's not asset-based. But to be eligible for SSDI, we've got, kind of two prongs here. So either the individual must have paid into the Social Security system, enough work credits, of course, or they became disabled prior to age 22 and their parent or spouse is also receiving Social Security. So those are kind of our two tests there to become eligible for SSDI. So what is SSDI giving us? Two benefits. The first one is a monthly benefit. It's usually higher than SSI, and it's an average in New Jersey of about $1,500 a month. So good key indicator there. If it is around $1,500 a month, there's a good chance that it is SSDI that the individual is receiving and not SSI. The amount that they're going to receive each month, of course, is based on how much they paid into the system while they were working. Second benefit is Medicare. So SSDI, once an individual becomes eligible for SSDI, after 2 years of receiving that benefit, they will be put on Medicare. I used to have a misconception that Medicare was only after a certain age. It doesn't matter what age the individual is, they can still be on Medicare if they are eligible for SSDI and have been receiving that for 2 years. Medicare usually pays for about 80% of expenses, but Medicaid can supplement that. So let's talk about that. SSI, this is supplemental security income. Same disability determination as SSDI, no substantial gainful activity. SSI, unlike SSDI, is both income and asset-based. So Social Security is looking at both of those. Both what the individual is bringing in each month and each year, and also what they have as far as assets go in their bank accounts. The asset limit is $2,000. So if an individual with special needs is coming into any kind of money, a personal injury settlement, alimony, child support, inheritance, a special needs trust is needed in order to maintain eligibility for SSI. If a third-party special needs trust is set up, then we're going to avoid that Medicaid payback. If not, a special needs trust still can be set up. It's a first-party special needs trust in that case because the inheritance has come to them personally. And then there is a Medicaid payback, but not without recourse. We can still absolutely preserve that as long as there is a Medicaid payback, unfortunately. So that's why we like to do that planning ahead of time, get that third-party special needs trust set up so that we are prepared ahead of time. All right, so let's talk about SSI benefits. The first one is a monthly payment, just starting recently, 2024, $974.25 in New Jersey. So it went up, I believe, about $30 or so from 2023. It increases each year with the cost of living adjustment. Of course, never as much as we would like, and the cost of living these days is very expensive, but this is what the government determined the cost of living adjustment to be for this year. Second benefit is Medicaid. So SSDI and Medicare, SSI and Medicaid. So that's another way if you're not sure what your loved one is receiving. If they are receiving Medicare, they are on SSDI. If they are receiving Medicaid, they're on SSI. Again, that's a general rule of thumb. So we don't want to go by that, of course, but when in doubt, that's usually a pretty good sign. So as soon as an individual is eligible for SSI, they are put on Medicaid automatically. So unlike the 2-year waiting period between SSDI and Medicare, SSI and Medicaid is immediate. So that's a really important one for individuals with special needs because they are not working. So they need that medical insurance elsewhere, and Medicaid is able to provide that. All right, Tom spoke a little bit earlier about deeming. So the important key takeaway here is that if your child or loved one with special needs was not eligible for Social Security when they were a minor, reapply or apply for the first time once they turn 18. That's a big one because the assets and income of the parents are no longer going to be attributable to the child once they turn 18, and then they are going to be able to receive Social Security assuming that they are medically eligible and don't have any income or assets of their own. All right, other Social Security benefits, just real quick, want to bring these to your attention. Even if they've never paid into Social Security, they might be eligible for benefits under the Disabled Adult Child Program. So this is for anyone who has become disabled prior to age 22, and either they have a parent or a spouse who died, a parent or a spouse who's receiving retirement Social Security benefits, or a parent or a spouse receiving SSDI. So those are DAC benefits. So yeah, bottom line there is that there really are a lot of opportunities and programs to receive Social Security under. So it is worth trying to apply and see what your loved one might be eligible for. All right. Show of hands. How many people have heard of the Personal Preference Program in New Jersey, PPP? Okay, good. All right. I have a lot of clients on this program. It's a really good one. It's a New Jersey specific benefit, but some other states do have comparable programs. It allows parents, friends, relatives, anyone that you want really, to be paid by Medicaid, not by you, not by the trust, by Medicaid as the individual's personal caregiver. Instead of having an agency involved in coming in and providing an aid, the services that either you or another family member is already providing, you can get paid to do that. The eligibility for it is that the individual has to be Medicaid eligible. They have to qualify for PCA services and need those for 6 months. There is an income and an asset test on this program, so a special needs trust is needed to maintain eligibility there. All right, moving right along. Workability is a Medicaid program for individuals with a higher income limit, so those who are working, obviously, to maintain that Medicaid eligibility even though they are working. So that's kind of the government's way of encouraging individuals to work and not have their Medicaid taken away. So we like that. Workability, here's the big takeaway here. There is no longer an asset limit. As of April 1st of 2023, no more asset limit. So do not need a special needs trust to maintain eligibility there. And I've got information on income limits earned and unearned in the materials in front of you, so I'm not going to go through that. DDD, just had Trish do a wonderful presentation on that, so I'm not going to drown you out with more of that. But the idea is for individuals to live successfully in the community and avoid having to live in a facility. So always happy to hear that. All right. Next up, we have federally assisted housing. So this is also known as HUD. The idea is that the rent that the individual pays is reduced based on their income. So there was a new act that was recently introduced, I think back in 2016, but again, just took a minute to get through Congress here. It's called the Housing Opportunity Through Modernization Act. It's also known as HOTMA. And this will start January 1st of 2024. So it's brand new, and this affects Section 8 housing, Section 202 housing, any housing programs under the federal government. There is a new asset limit. This is a big one. It's $100,000. There was no asset limit before, and now there is $100,000. So the goal here is that if your loved one is on federally assisted housing, they would not have necessarily needed a special needs trust before if that was the only benefit that they were on. But now with this new asset limit, they will need a special needs trust to maintain this. In order for that special needs trust, though, to maintain as a non-countable resource, we cannot have a family member as a trustee. And Tom talked earlier about the benefits of a corporate trustee. It's basically a necessity here if we are doing the special needs trust to maintain eligibility for federally assisted housing. It cannot be a family member serving as the trustee. A couple of home assistance programs that we have here in New Jersey. Gas and electric, heating and air conditioning, water and sewer. There is no asset limit for these programs, but there is an income limit. And you apply online. It's a fairly simple program. two of the programs actually just have one application together, so expedites that process a little bit. It's worthwhile to apply, and they give some money off of those housing assistance costs. All right, SNAP. This was formerly known as food stamps, so that's what we're talking about here. Very helpful for individuals on SSI. Again, when SSI is involved, the individual has to keep their assets under $2,000, and they're only receiving, starting in 2024, $974 a month. So not a ton of money, and that money needs to be spent on housing and food. And so if we are having a problem with SSI not being enough money, which is an understandable problem because $974 to live on a month is not a lot, food stamps, SNAP benefits can be helpful to supplement that. All right, there are income and asset limits on SNAP. So we do, again, if there is an asset limit, we need a special needs trust. That's kind of the takeaway here. Those two things need to go together. If there is an asset limit, we need a special needs trust to maintain eligibility if they're coming into any sort of money. Lastly, Work First New Jersey and TAMF benefits. They are New Jersey's welfare programs. There are income and asset limits on these programs, and a variety of programs underneath their umbrella that are designed to help families just on a temporary basis. Obviously, that's right there in the name. So they can be a good short-term resource to use. All right, let's talk about the key takeaways here. It's a complex landscape to be navigating here, to say the least. It's very complicated, it's time consuming, it's burdensome, but it can be worthwhile. I know a lot of you already have loved ones on public benefits, and so it's important that we figure out exactly what they are on so that we can maintain that in the future moving forward. If there is a benefit that has an asset limit and they have to keep a certain amount of money in their bank account, there needs to be a special needs trust as part of the comprehensive estate plan. If they're coming into money, a settlement, alimony, child support, inheritance, we need to set up that special needs trust, as Tom spoke about earlier. They are going to lose that benefit if they come into inheritance because of a loved one passing away and they receive that inheritance outright. They are going to lose that benefit. It's not something that we can hide from the government, unfortunately. They are going to figure it out. So I have a lot of clients call me up and say, well, what if we just kind of under the mattress? It's just not a good idea. So let's not play with fire like that. The third-party special needs trust, as Tom spoke about earlier, no Medicaid payback on this. So it protects your family money. You've worked so hard for this money. When it passes along to your children, we want to protect that and not have it go back to the state ultimately once your child passes away. So in order to protect that and for it to go to the next in line, we need that third-party special needs trust. If it's in a first-party special needs trust, or if it's just kept by your child outright and they lose those benefits, that's fine if that's the decision that you want to make, but there is still a state recovery after the child passes away for those Medicaid benefits that have been paid out. So that's the best way to protect your child's public benefits and also your money, is that third-party special needs trust.